Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex, coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... In this episode, I'm reviewing the horror classic Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco. And before I get started, I would like to note that this was recommended by two very kick-ass people. One of which is the booktuber known as the Bookubus, which I have included a link to her YouTube in the description section of this video, and the other recommender is known as the Instagrammer Wolfbay. Also, I decided to do this book as a buddy read with my good online friend Gina, which I'm really glad that I did because we had a lot of really cool discussions about what the book provided, and due to our buddy read, I was able to gain some insight that I might not would have had if I had read this alone. But aside from that, I would like to reminisce a little bit about Burnt Offerings because even though this was my first time reading the book, I grew up as a huge fan of the movie ever since I had seen it late one night at my grandparents' house. And truth be it, this is one of my favorite haunted house movies because it scared the hell out of me. Especially this one scene where a chauffeur comes for Betty Davis. And now, after having read the book, I can wholeheartedly say that the book is a million times more frightening than the movie, and it's also more informative. But anywho, I would like to say thank you to Wolfbay and the Bookubus for recommending this to me, and I would like to say thank you to Gina for reading this with me. And if any of you are watching this, I hope you enjoy this review. Now, without further ado, let's pack our bags and go off to the vacation home from hell. Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco introduces the Roth family who lives in Queens, and among them we have Miriam, as well as her husband Ben, and their young son David. Then, after we gain some insight into their home life, we eventually meet Ben's elderly Aunt Elizabeth who lives nearby. Early on, we see the Roths are frustrated with living in the city due to its hectic lifestyle. Also, they really don't have any privacy in their apartment due to neighbors. And even though they don't have that much money in their bank account, one day, Miriam approaches Ben and explains that she thinks it would be a good idea if they were to rent a vacation home for the summer just so they could relax and recuperate. Which, as luck would have it, she had earlier seen in the paper an ad for an available secluded mansion with its own private beach and swimming pool. From here, the Roths meet with the mansion owners, which is a sibling couple named the Allardyces, and the Roths discover that they can rent this entire mansion for $900 from July to September. However, there is a small catch, because as the Roths will be staying here, the Allardyces' elderly mother will be staying with them, and in that time, the Roths have to do nothing more than just simply give her 3 meals a day and leave her be. Well, with this sounding like a great opportunity, the Roths take the deal. But as soon as they move in, they discover that there's a sinister presence that's hovering around, and even more horrifying, this presence requires blood to thrive. Although published in 1973, Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco was originally written as a screenplay. However, Marasco rewrote it as a novel. Then it became a movie in 1976 that starred Betty Davis, Karen Black, and Oliver Reed. Upon its release, Burnt Offerings was well received, as Christopher Lehman with The Times said, "It made my skin crawl. There were some pages I simply didn't want to turn, and I had a deliciously awful time." And although Burnt Offerings has stood the test of time, where it has received multiple publications and gained new fans, unfortunately this was the only horror novel written by Robert Marasco, which aside from this work, Marasco's only other novel was a book called Parlor Games. Fun facts! Here's a few things you might not know about Robert Marasco and Burnt Offerings. Burnt Offerings was one of the contributing factors that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. which one can see character comparisons between Miriam Roth and Jack Torrance in regards to their refusal to leave the haunted house and their obsession. Marasco originally thought of himself as a writer of comedy, and he once said that when he wrote Burnt Offerings, he thought it would be a black comedy. However, it just came out black. Aside from Marasco's iconic novel, he was also a playwright. Among his works, his 1970s melodrama Child's Play ran for 342 performances on Broadway. In that time, it won Tony Awards for acting, directing, and set design. Also, Marasco was born in the Bronx and had taught Latin, Greek, and English at Regis High School in Manhattan. Unfortunately, Robert Marasco passed away in 1998 from lung cancer. Now that we have that covered, it's time to move on to the spoilers section, which if you've never read this before, I'm about to reveal some things that could ruin the experience for you. So if you would like to skip this segment, just scroll down to the comments and you'll notice that I have a pinned comment at the top, which will have a timestamp in it. Once you click that timestamp, it will direct you away from the spoilers and bring you to the thoughts section. Now, you only have 17 seconds to do this, so ready, set, go! Since everyone's had the opportunity to click away, I would like to talk about a few moments that really creep me the hell out. Which, the first one that comes to mind is the whole bedroom, sitting room area that belongs to Mother Allardyce. And even though this sounds like it's too simple to be creepy, hear me out. So what happens first is when Miriam enters the sitting room, we notice that there's this huge table to the side that is full of nothing but portraits. And even though these images seem like they're innocent, we start to notice how the subjects within those portraits are not smiling. Instead, they're staring blankly in horror. Then we also have the door that leads to Mother Allardyce's bedroom, where there's this weird hum that resonates behind it. And the first day when Miriam is in there, she notices how there's this intricate design that's carved into the wood of the door. And at first she notices how it looks like the constellations. But come the next day when she returns, she notices how this design has shifted and it now looks like a stylized sunburst, which even though she excuses this as an optical illusion, we know otherwise, especially since when Miriam puts her hand on the door, she can feel vibrations coming through its wood. What creeped me out more so than anything else in this scene was the table full of portraits, because as the photograph subjects were staring blankly in horror, all I could think was, what in the hell is scaring these people so badly? Also, I remembered there being a belief of how photographs could steal a person's soul, and with that taken into consideration, I thought maybe not only are we seeing images of previous sacrifices, but maybe this is a collection of captured souls. Then, even though this whole area felt like it was quaint and comfortable, there was something about it that just felt like a cold, empty, uninviting space. And overall, it reminded me of some of the haunted houses I had investigated, where the areas just felt like cold voids rather than inviting homes. So with me making that connection, it was actually pretty intense. Then, as I continued to read, I noticed how this whole area felt like a crypt or a tomb, and as soon as I thought this, Miriam starts to wonder where the Allardyces got Mother Allardyce's bedroom door. And even at one point, she starts to wonder if it's Egyptian or Hindu, because the carvings in its wood remind her of temples from those areas. So it was pretty cool to see how myself and the author were on the same page in regards to this kind of feeling like a crypt or tomb. The next moment that really creeped me out was when the house started to physically change all by itself. Now, prior to this, a lot of shit had gone down for the house to reach this level of power. Like, Ben had tried to kill David in the swimming pool, Miriam became obsessed with cleaning the house, Ben started to have these horrendous visions of a childhood trauma, the house tried to kill David by using a gas heater, and Aunt Elizabeth died. And during the house inflicting all of this chaos on the Roth family, we see that the house has started to magically repair itself, where it has returned to its glory days by tormenting the family. As a matter of fact, at one point, Ben actually sees the house change before his very eyes, where the house starts to shed its tiles and siding like how a snake sheds its skin. And overall, I really felt like this was a powerful scene because it gave a strong visual to how the house has prospered by destroying the Roth family. However, at the same time, I realized that the house and property were not 100% repaired quite yet, and for it to get to that level, it was really going to have to inflict some carnage. So, by knowing that, it really had me on the edge of my seat. And last, we have the creepy-ass ending where Miriam has now become the house's new source of energy so it can continue to prosper. Which, throughout the entirety of this book, although Miriam had been a devoted servant to the house and Mother Allardyce, she was never allowed inside Mother Allardyce's bedroom or to actually see her. And prior to the book's grand reveal, we see where Miriam has started to stay inside of Mother Allardyce's sitting room for long periods of time. And during this time, she becomes more obsessed and she starts to change emotionally and physically. Like, we eventually see where the house means more to her than her own family, and she starts to gray at a rapid pace, which indicates that the house is draining her. However, instead of it draining her until she dies like how it did with Aunt Elizabeth, it actually allows her inside Mother Allardyce's bedroom. But once inside, instead of actually seeing a person, she encounters an apparition. Then after the apparition vanishes, Miriam takes its place, where the humming that has existed inside of this room for the entirety of the book now continues to exist inside Miriam. And at this point, we get the indication that Miriam has become the new source of life for the house, where it can continue to drain her and it can continue to stay young. So even though the book moved pretty spot on with what I had seen in the movie, the ending is somewhat similar to what I saw on the film, but unlike the movie where the ending provided that jolt, the book actually provided an ending that felt like it was a bitter pill to swallow. And after I read this, all I could do was just sit back, stare blankly into space, and try to digest everything that I had just encountered. Which, truth be it, the more I thought about this, the more it freaked me out. Because not until I read the book did I realize that this whole time the house had been grooming Miriam into becoming its new mother or its new source of energy. Which kind of felt like a very abusive relationship that you would see between two people. And after I had the opportunity just to take all of this in, I found that the book was extremely frightening. I would like to use this opportunity to bitch about the Allardyces. Now, this sibling couple might have this grand old mansion that has a private beach and all of that shit, but they are just as nutty as a shithouse squirrel. Like, as Roz is ranting and raving about how great this hellhole of a house is, her eyes are so wide, she looks like she's a crackhead who just creamed herself. Then her brother Arnold just comes across as this old rich pervert because as he's admiring David from the window, he just has this whole vibe about him like he's a stone throw away from offering the poor kids some popsicles in the basement or some shit. Then, to top it off, the Allardyces have the audacity to raise the price of what they're asking for the house from $700 to $900 right in front of the Roth family. Like, Hell no. Seriously. Okay, my old gay ass got a bad back, and there ain't no way in hell I'm about to spend that much money on a house that I gotta clean up during my stay. I mean, shit, I would get a better deal by staying in one of those rent-by-the-hour crack hotels, and yeah, I might get scabies or something that penicillin can't cure, but you know what? I didn't just piss away $900 on a house that's gonna kill me. Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco is an allegorical horror novel. And while the house in this book is similar to the one that Shirley Jackson created in The Haunting of Hill House, where it uses its victims to thrive, it doesn't use its victims to wake up ghosts. Instead, this house uses its victims to restore itself to its former glory days, which is a pretty simple concept, right? Well, after finishing this book, Gina and I discussed everything we had read, and upon our discussions, we discovered that there was much more to this than just the surface read that we had initially seen. And because of that, it led us on about a week's worth of discussions, debates, and research. And had it not been for Gina, I might not would have received some of the insight that I had gained. First off, Gina noted to me how David had 3 toys that was of Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy. And as we discussed these toys, we noticed how they were metaphoric clues that foreshadowed the Roth's upcoming vacation home. Like, for example, the home was very similar to Dracula because instead of it draining blood like how Dracula did his victims, the house actually drains a person's energy and feeds off of that. Then we have the significance of the Mummy, because the whole bedroom, sitting room area that belonged to Mother Allardyce felt like a tomb or a crypt. As a matter of fact, Mother Allardyce's bedroom door actually felt like the lid of a sarcophagus. But among those 3 toys, Frankenstein was the one that had us stumped. And after we debated it and discussed everything, I remembered how Mary Shelley's Frankenstein focused on the dangers of obsession, which of course we see the dangers of obsession in Burnt Offerings, especially with the Miriam character. Theme-wise, we notice where this book primarily focused on 3 different subjects, one being obsession, another being the power that objects have over us, and the third being the deconstruction of the nuclear family. Now, as far as obsession is concerned, this topic is mostly seen through the Miriam character, because even before she and her family go to their vacation home, we notice where she has some tendencies that could label her as obsessive-compulsive with cleaning. But it's not until they actually move to this vacation home that her tendencies intensify and exploited and used against her. Which, some good examples of this is how she just obsessively cleans the house and organizes everything, and she starts to show more attention to the house and its objects than she does her own family. Then, as Miriam's obsession gets worse, we see where the house and its objects start to have power over her. As a matter of fact, it gets to the point where we see these material items matter more to her than her own family's well-being. And this is greatly emphasized on in the scene where David accidentally breaks a crystal bowl, and Miriam has to remind herself that her own son matters more to her than this crystal bowl. Also, there's a moment near the end where Miriam has the opportunity to save her family by driving around a fallen tree so they can get the hell out of Dodge. But instead of doing that, she turns the car around and returns to the house that she has now claimed as her own. Overall, I really feel like this is an important topic to focus on because it stresses if you value an object more than your loved ones, eventually you're going to lose your loved ones. And this brings us to the subject of the nuclear family being torn apart, where the book literally shows us that while Miriam's family is being deconstructed, the house is being reconstructed. And aside from Miriam's obsession, the house also affects Ben in some very negative ways. Like, Ben ends up having another mental breakdown, it brings up some of his childhood trauma, and it causes him to act aggressively. Then, while Miriam and Ben are trying to sort out their personal demons, this leaves David and Aunt Miriam in a scenario that feels like elder and child neglect, even though that neglect does not feel intentional due to their mindset and the house. So, yeah, overall, I really feel like this shows us how an unstable environment can destroy a family that already has some dysfunction going on. Aside from themes, as Gina and I read, we speculated a great deal in regards to the book's context, which literally led us down a rabbit hole. Like, as I was reading, I noticed where the house started to feel like a sacrificial chamber, and the Roth family felt like offerings to a god or goddess. From here, I did some research and discovered that the last name Allardyce is actually a Scottish name, which of course the Scottish people have Druid roots. So if this is accurate, I know this is me just kind of going out on a limb here, but it could be that the Allardyces are witches and the house is their sacrificial chamber. So after I mentioned this to Gina, she did some research, and after she presented that research to me, this book could easily have a bloodthirsty goddess that's overseeing everything. And truth be it, the book is very openly written, so there's really no proof to if our theories are correct or not, but that's just totally where our thoughts went. At the end of the day, Burnt Offering scared the hell out of me more so than the movie. And that's saying something because the movie is one of my top favorite scary movies ever. Now, even though I just said this book scared the hell out of me, nothing about it made me jump or made me feel like I was being watched. But as I sat and thought about everything I had read, I discovered that this was a very frightening concept. Also, I learned that if I ever receive a good deal on a vacation home, I need to think twice before I actually take that deal. Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco is the perfect haunted house story to read for summer. It's short, fast-paced, scary, deep, and it was totally a game changer for the haunted house subgenre. Also, even though I had seen the movie adaptation a million times, when I read this book, it felt like I was encountering the material for the first time ever due to its suggestion and detail. So, yeah, overall, I do highly recommend Burnt Offerings as it is the perfect summer read for a haunted house story. On to the questions. First off, what is a horror book that you would recommend that takes place in summer? My second question is, have you ever stayed in a vacation home that you thought was haunted? Unfortunately, I haven't stayed in a haunted vacation home yet. Hopefully that's something that'll happen in the near future. But I have stayed in a haunted hotel before, and I had spoken about that in one of my previous videos. Unfortunately, I can't remember exactly which video that was, so you'll just have to binge watch my videos. But yeah, totally load up the comments on your recommendation and if you had stayed in a haunted vacation home before. Now that we have that covered, I would like to give an update on Grandma. Pretty much last week we relocated Grandma from the facility she was at to a new rehabilitation center because the original facility she was in was honestly just not a good facility. And after having her relocated, 2 days later, we saw a major difference in Grandma. Like, she started walking around more, she's gained more energy, she's regained her appetite, and she's just overall in a much better place. And the staff who's working with her are literally saints. So yeah, Grandma is doing much better, and I would just like to take this opportunity to say thank you for your good vibes, your prayers, your thoughts, all of that good stuff. So yeah, I really do appreciate that. Now that it's time to close out the video, I would like to thank Lisa G, as well as J.L. Mulvihill, which J.L. Mulvihill is a young adult steampunk fantasy author, and her books are available in print, ebook, and audio wherever books are sold. Also, I would like to thank Melody Romeo, which Melody Romeo is a historic fiction fantasy author, and her books are available in print and ebook wherever books are sold. Also, Melody Romeo goes under the pseudonym Adele Lane, which Adele Lane focuses on same-sex fiction, and her books are available in print and ebook wherever books are sold. Also, I would like to thank Nicholas Gray, which Nicholas Gray is a horror author whose books are available in print, ebook, and audio wherever books are sold. Also, I would like to thank the artist Lisa Shin, which her work is available through the Facebook page The Art of Shin. And last but not least, I would like to thank my mom and grandma. And if you're wondering why I'm giving a shout out to these wonderful people, it's because they've had the opportunity to contribute to my Patreon account. And if you would like to contribute as well, I have a link to my Patreon in the description section of this video, and for $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos and tie a profession to your name if that's what you wish. Also, I do have a $10 tier available where this will still give you the shout out, but at the beginning of every month, I'll send you over one of my creepy photos because I do photography on the side. And once you receive that, you can print it off, do whatever you like with it. So if you're able to do this, that's great. If not, no sweat. I just hope you return to this channel so we can have a good time together. And if you would like to hunt me down on social media, links to my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are all available in the description section of this video, as well as my TikTok. I almost forgot that one, but my TikTok is up, and I do reviews on movies in regards to that channel. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, be sure to subscribe and click that notifications bell because I have more book reviews coming in the near future. So until we see each other again, I hope you have a great week and sweet nightmares.